The Galactic Academy floated above a blue star, its metal towers shining like blades of light. Inside, the training hall echoed with heavy breathing, groans, and the sound of bones cracking. The strongest cadets from 50 alien worlds were gathered there, each one struggling to lift the gravity core. The core was not a normal weight. It was a sphere made from compressed neutron alloy, said to hold the mass of a small moon. It was the final test, the symbol of ultimate strength. One by one, the alien cadets stepped forward. The first, a tall red-scaled warrior from Draven Prime, roared as he lifted with all his might. His muscles swelled, but the core did not move. He screamed again, pushing harder. Then a sickening crack filled the hall as his spine bent backward. The instructors rushed to him, but the damage was done. The next cadet, a creature with 6 arms and armored skin, tried next. The floor shook, but again the core remained still. One arm snapped, then another. Then the creature collapsed, unconscious. The crowd gasped. Even the instructors looked afraid. No one had ever passed this test. The chief instructor, a tall silver alien named Commander Vrake, stood with a cold expression. His voice echoed through the chamber. No being in the galaxy has lifted the gravity core. It separates the strong from the weak. A cadet whispered, "Then why test it if it cannot be done?" Commander Vrake turned sharply. "Because legends say that one day, a creature will rise who can. That day will mark a new age of warriors." The hall fell silent. The next name was called, but before anyone stepped forward, the massive metal doors at the end of the chamber opened with a deep rumble. Every alien turned their head. Standing there was a small figure, wearing a simple gray uniform. A human. Gasps filled the hall. Some cadets whispered in disbelief. "That's a human? From Earth? They're so small." Others laughed openly. "He'll break his bones just touching the core." The human walked calmly, his steps quiet but steady. His name was Elias. His brown eyes studied the room, the towering aliens, and finally, the black metallic core sitting in the center of the chamber. He tilted his head slightly, as if curious, not afraid. Commander Vrake frowned. "You are not on the list. Who allowed you here?" Elias smiled faintly. "I'm just here to try the test, sir. I heard it's a challenge." The instructor's eyes narrowed. "This is not a game, human. Even our best have failed." Elias shrugged. "Then maybe it's time someone didn't." A low ripple of laughter spread across the crowd. A massive reptilian cadet sneered, showing his fangs. "You'll die, human. Your bones are fragile." Elias looked at him and simply said, "We'll see." The instructors exchanged uneasy glances, then stepped aside. Commander Vrake gave a slow nod. "Very well. Begin." Elias walked up to the core. The air around it shimmered, the pressure so intense that even standing near it was painful. The alien cadets had worn exosuits to approach it. Elias wore none. He took a deep breath and placed his hands on the cold, rough surface of the gravity core. The room went silent. For a long moment, nothing moved. The weight pressed down on him like a mountain. The sensors in the walls flickered. Numbers rose faster than the machines could read. One alien whispered, "He'll collapse in seconds." But Elias didn't. His arms tightened, his legs braced, and the floor cracked beneath his boots. Slowly, impossibly, the gravity core began to move. The hall erupted with shouts. "Impossible! It's moving!" The scanners screamed warnings. Commander Vrake's eyes widened as he saw the readings. The core weighed more than any recorded object in the Academy's history, yet the human was lifting it. Elias' face was calm. A faint smile touched his lips. He raised it higher, until the core hovered just above the ground. His voice was steady, heavy but manageable. The crowd fell silent, staring in disbelief. He then set it down gently, as if placing a cup on a table. The core landed with a soft thud that echoed like thunder. Elias dusted his hands, looked around, and said quietly, "You should clean this thing more often. It's filthy." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then chaos. Cadets shouted, instructors stared, and Commander Vrake's mind raced. The scanners confirmed it. No tricks, no machines, no help. Pure strength. The alien who mocked him earlier dropped his training rod, trembling. He lifted it, like it was nothing. The word spread like wildfire across the academy halls. Within minutes, every corridor was alive with whispers. The human lifted the core. A creature from Earth did what no one could. Some were amazed. Others were terrified. Commander Vrake stepped forward, his voice quieter now. "Who are you, human?" Elias looked at him calmly. "My name's Elias. Just a man from Earth." He turned and began to walk away, leaving the stunned crowd behind. The alien stood frozen, watching the small human disappear through the same doors he entered from. None of them noticed that the floor where he stood had cracked under the weight he'd carried alone. That day, the Galactic Academy learned something it had long forgotten, that sometimes the smallest creature can hold the greatest strength. And somewhere deep in space, the whispers had already begun. The humans have returned. The next morning, the Galactic Academy buzzed with rumors. Every corridor, every training room, every communication screen repeated the same unbelievable story. The human lifted the gravity core. The news traveled so fast that even the upper halls of the council tower were filled with whispers. Aliens who had never even seen a human before now spoke of one name, Elias. In the training arena, cadets gathered around the shattered floor where the human had stood the day before. The crack in the metal surface remained, a silent reminder of what had happened. Some stared in awe, others in fear. For generations, the gravity core had been the Academy's greatest challenge, designed to measure the limit of physical strength and mental focus. Every alien species had tried, beasts of muscle, creatures of energy, beings made from living stone, and all had failed. Yet a human, a fragile creature from an ignored world, had done it effortlessly. Commander Vrake stood at the edge of the chamber, his silver eyes locked on the cracked floor. He had seen thousands of cadets come and go, but none had ever made him feel uncertain like this. He replayed the image in his mind, the human's calm face, the way he lifted the impossible weight without strain, and that quiet remark about cleaning the core. It was not arrogance. It was confidence. Natural, terrifying confidence. Vrake turned to his assistant. "Find him," he ordered. "I want to speak with the human again." The assistant hesitated. "Sir, he left after the test. He wasn't registered with the Academy. His records, they don't exist." Vrake frowned deeply. "Then where did he come from?" The assistant lowered his eyes. "From Earth, sir. A planet under the outer colony mark. Primitive technology, low population, no military record worth noting." The commander said nothing for a moment. A primitive world? Yet one of its people had done what entire civilizations couldn't. It made no sense. Meanwhile, Elias was sitting quietly in the Academy's outer garden, away from the chaos. The artificial sky glowed soft blue, and strange alien birds flew between the silver trees. He sat on a bench, watching the other cadets from afar. Some glared at him with suspicion. Others avoided his gaze completely. He didn't blame them. He hadn't come to impress anyone. He only wanted to see what this gravity core was. He had heard rumors from a trader who visited Earth months ago, tales of a galactic school that tested strength beyond reason. He came to test himself, to see if the stories were true. He hadn't expected the chaos that followed. As he sat there, two cadets approached him. One was tall and blue-skinned, with golden eyes. The other was smaller, covered in light fur, and carried a datapad. The taller one spoke first. "You are Elias, the human?" Elias nodded politely. "That's me." The cadet crossed his arms. "You made us all look weak. The core was not meant for fragile species like yours." Elias smiled faintly. "Then maybe the core isn't about species. Maybe it's about will." The smaller cadet looked curious. "How did you do it?" The gravity level was over 900 tons. Elias thought for a moment before answering. "Where I come from, life is heavy. You learn to lift more than weight. You lift yourself." The taller cadet snorted. "Poetic words don't change facts. The council will never accept this." He turned and walked away angrily. The smaller one stayed behind. "They're scared," he said softly. "They've trained for years for that test. Then you came and made it look easy." Elias nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to." "I know," the cadet said, "but the council won't see it that way. They think you're dangerous. Before Elias could respond, a group of security drones descended from the sky, surrounding him with bright lights. A mechanical voice spoke. "Elias of Earth, you are ordered to report to the council chamber immediately." The small cadet stepped back in fear. Elias stood up calmly. "Guess I'm being called to the principal's office," he said with a smirk. The drones escorted him through long silver corridors to the top of the academy tower. The chamber doors opened, revealing a wide circular room filled with alien leaders from countless worlds. Their faces were unreadable, their eyes sharp. At the center sat Commander Vrake. "Human," Vrake said firmly. "You have done something no being in history has achieved. The council demands to know how." Elias met his gaze without fear. "I lifted it." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. One council member hissed, "Mockery." Another slammed the table. "We have run tests on your body. Your bones are strong, yes, but not stronger than ours. Your muscles are normal. How did you cheat our machines?" Elias shrugged. "I didn't cheat. Maybe your machines just can't measure effort." The council fell silent again. Commander Vrake studied him carefully. There was no lie in his tone, no trace of deception, just truth, pure and simple. After a long pause, Vrake said, "You are dismissed, but understand this. Your actions have changed something. The galaxy will not ignore Earth anymore." Elias bowed slightly and left the chamber, the heavy door closing behind him. Inside, the council members turned toward Vrake. "He must be studied," one said coldly. "If all humans are like him, they could threaten us all." Vrake didn't respond. His eyes remained on the door. Outside, Elias walked through the quiet halls again, feeling dozens of eyes watching him. The whispers grew louder. "The human is dangerous. He's not normal. Maybe they evolved differently." He ignored them. Somewhere deep down, he could feel it too. The shift in the air, the growing tension. The galaxy had noticed Earth. And once the galaxy notices something, it never forgets. The Galactic Council Hall was the most secure and sacred place in the galaxy. It floated within a massive ring of golden light above the central star, its walls made of crystal that shimmered like frozen fire. Inside, the leaders of over 100 species gathered in silence. Holograms of distant worlds flickered above them, but all attention was fixed on one topic, the human named Elias. The news of what he had done at the Academy had spread far beyond the planet. From the icy moons of Threx to the desert worlds of Kavar, every species was talking about it. A creature from a forgotten planet had lifted the gravity core, a task thought impossible for all known life. The council wanted answers, and they wanted them now. Commander Vrake stood at the center of the chamber. His voice was steady, but his mind was still haunted by the sight of that calm human lifting the impossible weight. "Counselors," he began, "I have reviewed every record, every scan, every test. There was no technology, no outside help. The human did it on his own." A deep voice rumbled from a large creature covered in molten armor. "Then how? The laws of physics are universal. No biological being should survive that level of force." Another counselor hissed, her eyes glowing. "Perhaps it is deception. The humans must possess hidden tech. Their world could be harboring forbidden energy sources." Vrake shook his head slowly. "Their world is primitive. I have seen their data. No weapons, no ships capable of faster-than-light travel, no empire. Just a single planet with scattered nations. Yet somehow he did it." The council fell silent again. Then, from the far side of the room, a smaller alien stood up. It was a scholar from the Zethari species, known for their deep knowledge of evolution and planetary science. "Perhaps the answer lies in their world itself," he said. "The human homeworld, Earth, has conditions that are far harsher than most colonies. High gravity, unstable climates, dangerous predators, constant survival pressure. It may have shaped them differently. They evolved not in peace, but in constant struggle." Murmurs spread through the chamber. One counselor leaned forward. "You mean to say their strength is natural?" The scholar nodded. "Perhaps not strength alone. Perhaps endurance, willpower, and pain tolerance beyond anything we can understand." Commander Vrake felt a chill in his spine. "If that is true," he said quietly, "then the galaxy has been blind for too long." Meanwhile, Elias was kept in a quiet observation room at the Academy. It was not a prison, but it might as well have been. Cameras watched him from every corner, analyzing his every move. He didn't seem to mind. He sat calmly on a bench, eating a meal that had been prepared for him. When the door opened, Commander Vrake entered, his metallic boots echoing softly. "You are being studied," Vrake said plainly. "They want to understand you." Elias smiled lightly. "Understand me? There's not much to it, Commander. I'm just a man who likes a challenge." Vrake looked at him closely. "Do all humans possess your strength?" Elias shook his head. "No. Back home, I'm pretty normal. But humans were different. We break, but we heal. We fall, but we get up. Maybe that's what strength really is." The words hung in the air for a long moment. Vrake could not explain why, but he felt respect for the human. There was no arrogance in his tone, only quiet certainty. Later that night, across the galaxy, the Council's intelligence division sent stealth drones to Earth. They wanted proof. They wanted to see what kind of world could produce a creature like Elias. The drones arrived silently in Earth's orbit, hiding within the shadows of the moon. They recorded everything: humans running, building, fighting, laughing, surviving. They saw cities built by bare hands, oceans crossed by fragile machines, and storms faced without fear. The reports they sent back shocked the Council. Subject species operates under constant environmental strain. One report read, "Planet gravity exceeds standard by 30%. Ecosystem unstable. Species displays emotional resilience, pain resistance, and collective adaptability unmatched in known biology." Another report added, "Despite low technology, humans show an unusual desire to challenge limits, both physical and mental. They do not fear failure. They seem to crave it." The Council chambers grew restless as the data played across the screens. The molten armored alien growled, "A species that seeks challenge will never stop. That makes them unpredictable." The scholar nodded grimly. "Or unstoppable." Commander Vrake watched the data in silence. He now understood that Elias was not an accident. He was a glimpse of what humanity truly was, a reflection of something dangerous and magnificent. The Council began to argue. Some demanded that Earth be invited to join the Galactic Union. Others warned that it must be contained or destroyed before it could grow stronger. "If they can lift the core today," one shouted, "what will they lift tomorrow? The stars themselves." Vrake spoke finally, his tone cold and clear. "If you fear them, then you already know the truth. They are not weak. They are what we all once were, hungry to rise, no matter the pain." The room fell silent once more. Outside the chamber, through the great crystal walls, the stars burned bright and distant. Somewhere among them was Earth, small and quiet, unaware that the entire galaxy now watched it with a mixture of awe and fear. Back in his room, Elias looked up at the artificial night sky above the Academy dome. He could sense the tension even without hearing it. He didn't know that drones had already visited his home planet. He didn't know that the galaxy was debating his existence. He only knew one thing: his action had changed something far greater than he imagined. And far away, in the Council's hidden chambers, a message was already being prepared. It read, "Earth is no longer irrelevant. The human species may be the most dangerous form of life we have ever encountered." The following days at the Galactic Academy felt like the calm before a storm. Every corridor was alive with whispers about the human named Elias. The cadets no longer trained with the same confidence. The day he lifted the gravity core had rewritten what everyone believed possible. The Council had decided that more tests would be done. They wanted proof, scientific, physical, and psychological. Was Elias a rare anomaly, or the beginning of something greater? When the summons came, he was escorted once again into the testing arena. This time, dozens of scientists and officers from different species stood around the edges, holding scanners and data tablets. The chamber glowed with cold white light, and strange machines hummed quietly in the background. Commander Vrake was there too, watching silently. "Elias of Earth," announced the lead scientist, a pale, insect-like alien with glowing green eyes. You will now participate in a series of experiments designed to measure your limits. You are not required to continue if you feel pain or exhaustion. Elias tilted his head slightly and smiled. You might be waiting a while then. The first test began. They placed Elias inside a pressure chamber designed to simulate the gravity of collapsing stars. The weight increased gradually. At 4 times normal gravity, most alien soldiers would faint. At 6, bones would begin to fracture. At 10, no one could survive. The monitors beeped as the gravity level rose. 5, 6, 7, 8. Elias remained standing, breathing steadily. At 10, he smiled. At 12, the metal floor beneath him began to dent. The scientist stared at the readings in disbelief. Is he human or machine? One whispered. When they stopped the chamber, Elias stepped out calmly, stretching his arms. Bit heavy, he said, but manageable. The next test measured pain endurance. They used controlled neural pulses, harmless, but designed to mimic extreme pain. Most cadets lasted 30 seconds before crying out. Elias stood for 10 full minutes without moving, his eyes steady, his jaw firm. When they asked what he felt, he answered, I've had worse headaches. The room fell silent. The third test was psychological. They projected illusions meant to terrify the subject, nightmares, fears, phantoms from the mind. Elias watched the images appear before him, the destruction of Earth, oceans burning, cities falling. He didn't flinch. Fear, he said quietly, is useful only if you listen to it, but it doesn't rule me. The scientist turned to Commander Vrake. His mental resistance is unlike anything we've seen. Even our elite telepaths can't affect him. Vrake nodded slowly. He doesn't resist fear. He accepts it. That's why he cannot be broken. After the tests ended, the council requested a private report. Vrake prepared the data himself. Subject Elias of Earth. Findings: endurance and strength beyond measurable scale. Pain resistance at 900% above galactic standard. Mental stability unshakable under psychic stress. Recommendation: further study required. Possibility of human species, representing a new form of biological evolution. The report was sent to the council chamber. When the members read it, silence filled the room. Some were fascinated. Others were terrified. One of them, a dark figure from the shadowy world of Yulth, spoke softly. This human must not be allowed to spread his kind across the stars. If one of them can do this, imagine an army. Another responded sharply. You suggest extermination? That would start a war. Better a war now than extinction later, hissed the first. The debate grew heated. Meanwhile, Elias remained unaware of their growing fear. He had returned to the academy training grounds, where a few curious cadets gathered around him. They no longer mocked him. They asked questions. How do you humans become so strong? A cadet asked. Elias thought for a moment. Maybe because we've had no choice. On Earth, everything fights to survive. The weather, the world, sometimes even each other. You either grow strong, or you don't wake up the next day. The cadets listened quietly. For the first time, they saw humanity not as weak, but as something dangerous and beautiful. Life that refused to give up. Commander Vrake approached him later that evening. You realize what you've done, human? He asked. Elias smiled slightly. Lifted a heavy rock. No, Vrake said seriously. You've changed how the galaxy sees your species. Some now see you as hope, others as a threat. Elias shrugged. People always fear what they don't understand. Perhaps, Vrake said, but fear leads to action. Far across space, the Council's secret military division began preparing contingency plans. Ships were ordered to patrol near-Earth sector. Surveillance satellites were launched. They called it observation. But the truth was clear. They were preparing for possible conflict. That night, Elias looked up at the artificial stars shining above the Academy dome. He felt the tension in the air, though no one spoke it aloud. He could sense eyes watching him from every corner of the galaxy. Yet he didn't feel fear. He felt curiosity. What did the galaxy fear so much about humans? Was it strength? Or something deeper? The will to never surrender? Commander Vrake stood at his office window, watching the same sky. He knew the council would not stop with tests. They would dig deeper, and if they didn't like what they found, they might decide to erase humanity before it grew stronger. He whispered to himself, "They fear him because he reminds us of what we lost, the courage to struggle." And somewhere in the council chamber, an encrypted message was already being sent to a secret fleet hidden in deep space. It carried just 5 words that would change everything. Prepare for human containment protocol. The rumors spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, from the icy rings of Varnus to the burning clouds of Helios, every world now knew of the human who had lifted the unliftable. Some saw him as a legend, others as a threat. News channels repeated the same line. A human from Earth has broken the limits of biology. On the training worlds, alien cadets whispered about him before every drill. On warships, soldiers argued about whether humanity was real or just a story invented to inspire fear. But deep inside the Galactic Council's main station, fear had already taken root. The council members no longer discussed research. They discussed control. "The human cannot be allowed to move freely," said a shadowed figure during a private meeting. "His kind must be studied, contained, and if necessary, neutralized." Another voice disagreed, softer but firmer. "Destroying them will create a martyr. Containment will bring resentment. Perhaps we should reach out, bring Earth into the Union peacefully." The room buzzed with arguments. Some saw opportunity, others saw doom. Commander Vrake stood silently in the corner, listening. He had been summoned as an advisor, though he already knew the truth. Most of them were too afraid to see the human as anything but a weapon waiting to be turned against them. When the meeting ended, he was called aside by a high-ranking counselor. "Vrake," she said coldly, "you have been in direct contact with the human. What is your judgment?" He hesitated. He is not a threat. He does not seek war. He simply wanted to prove himself. The counselor frowned. Intentions change. Fear spreads. We cannot risk the balance of power. Prepare to transfer him from the academy to the central research facility. Vrake's jaw tightened. "That's a prison, not a lab." "Call it what you will," she replied. "The order stands." That night, the order reached the academy through encrypted channels. Elias was to be relocated immediately for further observation. The message was clear. It was not optional. When Vrake arrived at Elias's quarters, he found the human sitting calmly on the bed, reading through a holographic report on alien physiology. "You've been busy," Vrake said quietly. Elias looked up and smiled. "Trying to understand the galaxy that's trying to understand me." Vrake sighed. "You're being moved. The council claims it's for more testing, but I fear it's more than that." Elias closed the report and stood up. "They're afraid," he said simply. "I can feel it." "They think you're dangerous," Vrake admitted. "They're not wrong," Elias replied, his tone calm but firm. "Fear makes people do dangerous things." The next morning, an escort team of heavily armed soldiers arrived at the academy. Every cadet stopped to watch as Elias was surrounded by guards and led through the halls. Whispers filled the air. "They're taking the human." "Where to?" "They're scared of him." But Elias walked quietly, his face unreadable. When they reached the transport bay, Vrake met him there one last time. "I'll try to keep you safe," the commander said. Elias nodded. "Don't worry about me, Commander. Just keep them from doing something they'll regret." The transport ship rose into the air, leaving the academy behind. For many cadets, that moment felt like the end of an era, the day the galaxy admitted that strength could come from anywhere, even a small blue world no one cared about. At the central research facility, the tone was much colder. The walls were white, the air sterile, and the scientists who greeted Elias didn't see him as a guest. They saw him as a specimen. They ran tests, scanned his cells, and analyzed his DNA. Every result only made them more confused. His physiology was normal by galactic standards, yet his strength and endurance defied every model. "He shouldn't exist," one scientist muttered. "Every calculation says he should have broken apart under that gravity." Another whispered, "Then maybe our calculations are wrong." Outside the facility, the galaxy grew restless. On distant planets, protests began. Some alien groups demanded that the Council stop mistreating the human. Others called for Earth's destruction before it produced more like him. On the interstellar networks, humans became a symbol of defiance. Posters appeared on alien walls, with one phrase beneath the image of Elias lifting the core. Strength comes from struggle. Vrake watched all of it unfold with a heavy heart. He knew what was coming. Fear always led to conflict. In secret, the Council began mobilizing ships toward the solar sector under the name Observation Fleet. But the files marked confidential carried the real purpose: containment by any means. Meanwhile, in his sterile white room, Elias sat in silence. The scientists had left for the night. The stars outside the observation window glittered like cold eyes watching him. He could feel the unease in the air, the weight of decisions being made far away. He knew what fear did to civilizations. It made them act before thinking. He had seen it on Earth many times before. He stood and looked at his reflection in the glass. "They'll come for us," he whispered. "Not because we're monsters, but because we remind them what courage looks like." Far away, Commander Vrake stood on his ship's observation deck, staring into the endless dark. The Council's orders replayed in his mind. If Earth resists, eliminate the threat. He clenched his hands. For the first time in his long career, he doubted his loyalty. "They don't understand," he muttered. "They're about to start a war with the one species that never gives up." The galaxy had changed. The legend of the human had become a warning. And in the shadows of the stars, fleets were already moving, one to contain, the other to prepare. The universe was holding its breath, waiting for the moment when fear would turn into fire. The Galactic Academy had returned to routine training, but nothing felt normal anymore. The air carried tension, as if every cadet knew something was about to happen. The story of the human still echoed in every corridor, every classroom, every whispered conversation. Some cadets spoke of him as a hero, others as a myth. But the truth was far darker than anyone guessed. Deep beneath the academy, inside the restricted archives where centuries of forgotten data were stored, a researcher named Lyra had been ordered to study the human records. She was a historian, not a soldier, and the more she read, the more unsettled she became. Buried in the oldest layers of galactic memory, long before the modern council had formed, she found strange reports, records from an ancient war thousands of years ago. The texts described a powerful species that had once fought alongside the early council worlds. The name was familiar, yet erased in most archives: humans. According to the old data, humanity had been one of the founding races of the First Galactic Alliance, known for their creativity, endurance, and terrifying willpower. But something had happened. The records ended abruptly with words burned into the archive itself. They could not be controlled. Lyra sat in silence, her eyes fixed on the words. Someone long ago had tried to erase humanity from history. She immediately reported her findings to Commander Vrake. When he read the recovered data, his expression darkened. "So they knew," he muttered. "They feared humanity before, and they erased them to protect themselves." Lyra nodded. "If that's true, Elias isn't the first. His people were once part of everything. The council lied to everyone." Vrake leaned back, his mind racing. The council built its power on a lie, and now that lie has come back from the grave. Meanwhile, in the central research facility, Elias began to sense that something was wrong. The scientists had grown distant. They whispered behind reinforced doors, locking away their notes when he entered the room. His tests had stopped abruptly. Guards stood closer now, their weapons always in hand. One evening, as he sat by the observation window, a faint hum began deep in the walls. He stood and placed a hand on the cold metal. It vibrated with a frequency he recognized: energy weapon charge buildup. He frowned. "So this is how they planned to end the experiment," he whispered. Moments later, the door opened, and Commander Vrake stepped in, his face tense. "Elias," he said quickly, "there's no time. They've voted to terminate the research. They think killing you will keep the galaxy calm." Elias stood slowly, his eyes calm but sharp. "So they're choosing fear over reason." "Yes," Vrake said, "but not all of us agree. I can get you out, but once we leave, you'll be hunted. Elias gave a small nod. I've been hunted before. Together, they slipped through the dim corridors of the facility. Alarms started blaring as the escape was detected. Security drones swarmed through the halls, their metallic voices shouting warnings. Vrake led him through maintenance tunnels, using his clearance codes to override locks. The air smelled of ozone and burning circuits. They finally reached the docking bay, where a small transport ship waited. As they ran aboard, a plasma blast hit the wall beside them, shaking the floor. Elias turned, eyes hard. They're scared enough to shoot at shadows now. The ship's engines roared to life, and they burst out into the cold dark of space. Below them, the research station flashed with sirens, its once calm lights now flickering red. As they moved into hyperspace, Vrake sat in silence, staring out the window. You should know something, he said quietly. Lyra found records. You weren't the first human to stand in this galaxy. Your kind was here long before any of us. Elias looked at him. Then why doesn't anyone remember? Vrake's voice was low. Because the Council made sure no one did. They erased your species from history after the last war. They feared you even then. Elias leaned back, thinking. And now their fear has brought us full circle. Yes, Vrake said. They believed humanity was extinct. But you're proof that history can't stay buried forever. When their ship exited hyperspace, they found themselves near the edge of a dead system, a graveyard of old warships from forgotten conflicts. The hulks drifted silently among asteroids, their broken hulls glowing faintly with energy scars. Elias walked to the viewport, his eyes narrowing. Looks like the past is still floating around us. Those ships, Vrake said, were from the First Alliance War, the one humanity fought in. Maybe some of your people died here. Elias touched the glass lightly. Then maybe it's time someone remembered them. Back in the council chambers, chaos was spreading. The moment the news broke that Elias had escaped, panic rippled across the galaxy. Some members demanded that Earth be destroyed immediately to prevent another uprising. Others called for negotiation. But then, something unexpected happened. In hidden parts of the galactic network, old transmission codes began to activate. Codes that hadn't been used for thousands of years. They carried a single message in an ancient Earth language, one only a few translators could read. We are not gone. The Council scrambled to trace the signal, but it bounced across systems faster than they could follow. On world after world, old humans who had been living in hiding revealed themselves, descendants of the first colonists, forgotten by history, scattered across the stars. The Council realized too late that Elias was not alone. Humanity had already returned. As the Council debated and fleets prepared, Elias stood aboard the small ship, staring at the endless stars. They thought we were extinct, he said softly. They were wrong. Vrake looked at him. What will you do now? Elias smiled faintly. What humans always do, adapt, survive, and remind them that we're still here. The stars outside shimmered, silent witnesses to a truth the galaxy had tried to erase. Humanity had once shaped the stars, and now they were rising again, stronger than before. The forgotten species had awakened, and the galaxy would soon remember the name it had buried in fear, Earth. The galaxy trembled with whispers. Across thousands of systems, the return of humanity became the most discussed event since the founding of the Galactic Council. News channels replayed shaky footage of Elias's escape. Governments issued emergency broadcasts, and the Council declared a state of interstellar alert. But panic had already taken root. On industrial planets, protests erupted, some demanding peace with Earth, others demanding its destruction. In the shadows, old secrets stirred. Hidden colonies of humans, long forgotten or believed extinct, began transmitting coded messages through the old Alliance network. Their signals were faint but unmistakably human, calm, precise, and defiant. Commander Vrake watched the chaos unfold from the deck of his ship. Every message, every broadcast, confirmed what Elias had said. Humanity had never truly vanished. They had only been waiting, rebuilding, surviving in silence. Elias stood beside him, eyes fixed on the holographic map, showing systems flaring with human activity. They were here all along. he said quietly, hidden among the ruins of their own history. Drake nodded. The council will see this as a rebellion. They'll send fleets before they ask questions. Then we have to reach them first, Elias said, before fear decides everything. Drake hesitated. Reach who? Elias turned toward him, his gaze steady. The hidden colonies. If they unite before the council attacks, maybe we can stop another war. The ship jumped into hyperspace again, following the faint coordinates of the old human beacons. Each jump brought them deeper into uncharted space, through regions where even the council's influence had faded. When they finally exited hyperspace, they found themselves near a dying star surrounded by shattered moons and drifting debris. In the distance floated a massive structure, half station, half ship, glowing faintly with blue light. Elias stared at it in awe. That's human design, he whispered. The hull was old, scarred by time, but the shape was unmistakable, angular, efficient, built for survival. As they approached, a voice echoed through the comms in clear English. Unidentified vessel, identify yourself or be fired upon. Elias stepped forward. This is Elias Carter of Earth. We seek contact. Silence followed. Then a second voice answered, older and weary. Earth? We thought Earth was lost. Elias smiled faintly. Not lost. Just forgotten. The massive doors of the station opened, and the ship slipped inside. What awaited them was astonishing. Humans, real humans, walked through the corridors, dressed in rough uniforms, their faces marked by years of hard living. They looked at Elias with disbelief, as if staring at a ghost. A tall woman with silver hair approached, her expression both wary and hopeful. I'm Admiral Rain, she said. You really came from Earth? Elias nodded. I did. And you? We're the descendants of the First Fleet, she said. We escaped when the Council turned against us. We've been surviving on the edge ever since. Her eyes narrowed. But why now? Why reveal yourselves? Elias looked around the crowded hangar, seeing hundreds of faces watching him. Because they found us again. The Council is preparing to strike, and if we don't stand together, they'll erase us a second time. The room fell silent. For a long moment, only the hum of machines filled the air. Then Rain spoke softly. You want us to fight? I want us to be ready, Elias said. If we fight, it's only because they give us no choice. Drake stepped forward. He's telling the truth. I was there. The Council already called for Earth's containment. They've sent fleets under the name Observation, but they're armed for war. The Admiral's eyes hardened. Then we don't have much time. Within hours, the hidden colony came alive. Old ships powered up, engineers ran diagnostics, and defense systems long dormant began to glow. Drake watched in silence, amazed by the humans' efficiency. How long have they been hiding like this? He asked. Rain replied without looking up. Centuries. We kept the flame alive, hoping someday we'd go home. Now it seems home has come to us. Elias walked through the hangars, watching as human pilots prepared fighters with ancient insignias that still carried the emblem of Earth, a blue sphere surrounded by stars. You've kept the spirit, he said softly. We never forgot, Rain answered, but the galaxy did. Meanwhile, across the stars, the Galactic Council assembled the largest fleet in its history. Massive dreadnoughts gathered near the border of the solar sector. The official message was peacekeeping. But every commander knew the truth. This was an invasion. As reports reached the hidden colony, Elias stood in the command room beside Rain and Drake. The holographic map showed dozens of enemy fleets converging toward Earth. They're not wasting time, Drake said. They'll be in range within a week. Elias looked at the map quietly, his mind working. Then we'll meet them before they reach home. You plan to fight the Council's fleet with this? Rain gestured at their ragged ships. Elias smiled slightly. Not fight. Show them why they should stop. Rain frowned. You think they'll listen? They will, Elias said, his voice calm but filled with certainty. Because for the first time, they'll see what humans really are, not monsters, not myths, but survivors. Outside the window, the first human fleet in centuries began to move. The engines ignited with a thunderous glow, illuminating the dark space around them. The long-forgotten warships turned slowly toward the stars, their lights like burning embers rising from the ashes of history. Elias stood at the center of the bridge, watching as the ships aligned in formation. "The galaxy wanted to forget us," he said softly. "But history doesn't erase those who endure." Vrake looked at him and felt something strange, hope. For the first time in his life, he believed that one man could change the fate of entire civilizations. As the fleet prepared for departure, a single transmission was sent across the galaxy from the human command ship. It carried no threat, no declaration of war, only a message that every world could understand. "We remember who we are. Do you?" In the council chambers, the message echoed like thunder. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy realized that humanity was not gone. They were awake, and they were watching. The human fleet moved through the void like ghosts returning from legend. Silent, disciplined, and precise, their ships cut across the stars with engines that glowed like the embers of an ancient fire. On the command bridge, Elias stood at the center, his eyes locked on the holographic display showing the incoming council armada. Thousands of ships, sleek, polished, and overwhelming in number, approached the border of the solar sector. Yet the human fleet, though smaller and older, moved with purpose. Every pilot, every engineer, every officer aboard those ships carried the same fire in their hearts, the will to survive. Admiral Rain walked beside Elias, her expression grim. "We're outnumbered 20-1, she said. "Their fleet could crush us in minutes." Elias didn't flinch. Numbers don't decide everything. Resolve does. Commander Vrake watched from the side, conflicted. He was still part of the galactic forces by oath, but his loyalty had shifted long ago. He had seen what fear did to civilizations, how panic turned leaders into executioners. Now, watching Elias command, he saw something different, courage where others saw madness. The fleet exited hyperspace, just beyond Jupiter's orbit. The dark silhouette of the Council Armada filled the stars, an endless wall of metal and light. A communication request came through immediately. "This is Fleet Admiral Torvak of the Galactic Council. Identify yourself and stand down. You are violating interstellar law by assembling an unauthorized military force." Elias replied calmly, "This is Elias Carter of Earth. You are violating the right of existence by preparing to erase a species from history for the second time." Silence followed. Then Torvak's cold voice returned. "You are a threat to galactic stability. Surrender now, and we may show mercy." Elias's tone sharpened. "You've mistaken restraint for weakness. Humanity doesn't surrender. We endure." The line cut. For a long moment, both fleets hovered in the silent dark, engines humming like distant thunder. The galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. On the Council's flagship, Torvak scowled. "They will not listen. Begin the advance." The massive fleet surged forward, weapons charging, engines roaring. From Earth's orbit, defense satellites powered up, ancient systems reawakening from centuries of dormancy. The human fleet moved into formation, spreading wide across the solar plane. Vrake turned to Elias. "They'll open fire in seconds. What's your plan?" Elias looked at him. To remind them what they've forgotten. The first plasma volley lit up space, streaks of blue fire racing toward the human ships. Explosions rippled across the void as energy fields flared to life, absorbing most of the impact. Human ships responded, not with full counterattack, but with precise strikes, disabling engines, jamming sensors, never aiming to kill. Admiral Rain barked orders across the bridge. "Target command vessels. Disable their comms. No casualties unless absolutely necessary." The Council fleet, confused by the restraint, hesitated. Pilots expected a full war, not a controlled defense. In that moment of uncertainty, Elias opened a secure channel, broadcasting across every ship, every frequency. His voice carried through the stars, steady and unyielding. "To the Galactic Council forces, we are not your enemies. You fear us because you don't understand us. You tried to erase us because you couldn't control us. But humanity doesn't seek control, we seek freedom. You call us dangerous because we refuse to kneel. Yet even now we offer peace. The message echoed across the fleets. On many council ships, soldiers paused, listening in silence. Some had heard stories of Earth, stories of courage, sacrifice, and will. Others looked at the human fleet's restraint and began to doubt the council's orders. On the command deck of the council flagship, Torvac slammed his fist. "Cut that transmission. End this now." But his officers hesitated. "Sir," one said quietly, "they're not firing to kill. They're holding back." Torvac's eyes blazed. "That's a trick. Finish them." Another volley fired, this time heavier and more desperate. But the humans moved with impossible precision, weaving between energy blasts like dancers in a storm. One human ship took a direct hit and exploded in a flash of white light. For a heartbeat, all of space went still. Elias's eyes hardened. "That's enough." His fleet responded in unison, launching an electromagnetic pulse wave that shut down dozens of council ships instantly. Engines died, weapons went dark, and silence fell. Elias transmitted again, his voice now filled with quiet fury. "You see now what you've done. We tried to talk. You answered with fire. But even now we won't destroy you, because that's what makes us human." Across the battlefield, council captains exchanged uneasy glances. One by one, ships began lowering their weapons. Some powered down entirely. The armada that had once seemed unstoppable now fractured under the weight of doubt. Admiral Rain looked at the fading battle lines and whispered, "They're standing down." Vrake exhaled slowly, disbelief in his eyes. "You did it. You actually made them stop." Elias didn't smile. "Not yet. Fear doesn't vanish, it hides. We've shown them mercy. Now they have to decide what to do with it." The transmission reached the council chambers within hours. The leaders were divided. Some demanded total retaliation. Others called for peace talks. For the first time in millennia, the Galactic Council was uncertain of its own authority. Across the galaxy, species who had long lived in the Council's shadow began to question their leaders. The legend of the human spread once again, no longer as a tale of fear, but as a story of defiance and hope. On Earth, people watched the skies as new stars flickered, ships returning home after centuries lost. Humanity had not just survived, they had reclaimed their place among the stars. Elias stood at the observation window of his flagship, watching the sunrise over Earth. "It's beautiful," he murmured. Vrake nodded beside him. "You've changed everything." Elias smiled faintly. "No, we reminded them what they forgot. That strength isn't domination. It's standing when the universe tells you to kneel." The war that never truly began had ended, not with conquest, but with understanding born from fear. The galaxy would never be the same. In the silence that followed, every world looked toward Earth, not as a threat, but as a reminder of what courage could mean. Humanity had lifted the weight of history once more, and this time, the stars themselves watched in awe.